Hello, everyone. Welcome to another online meetup of PyBerlin. A very warm good evening to all of you, and we're very happy to have you. So let me just share my screen. And I hope you can all see my screen now. So, welcome again. It's the 19th event and it's bright and sunny these days. Everyone is enjoying the weather. And like the last four times, we hope that this event could have been in person, but due to the situation, we are happy to have it online, and we're happy to have all of you with us. We are almost 2200 plus members and we could not be more happy about it. So thanks to all of you for being part of this community, and also please help our community grow by sharing it with people whom you think might be interested in Python, in PyBerlin, and we would be happy to have more and more members in our community. So why PyBerlin? The main concepts, of course, by the name, we all love Python. It is what we do day in and day out. It is our bread and butter. So we all love Python. We all love sharing ideas in Python. We're all based in Berlin, and we're welcome to everyone who is interested to be a part of this community. Our organizers are Anastasia, who is handling the streaming today, Shreya, Miguel, Theo, and Ellen. We're all handling other logistics, and we're working behind the camera to make this event a success. First, and Ellen and Theo, it's the first event for them. So welcome to both of you to our organizers community, and we're very happy to have you. At the same time, we are saying farewell to one of our organizers, Matteo. He has decided to take a step back from his active role as an organizer of PyBerlin. And we cannot be more grateful for your time, Matteo, especially in handling the streaming platforms when we started our online meetups. We will really miss you, and we look forward to having you back very soon as an organizer. Thanks to everyone for joining. It is, like I said, our fifth online event. And we do not have many rules, but one thing that is super important for us, that all of us, be it the speakers, audience, or the organizers, we should be nice and kind to each other, be patient, and give the other person and each one of us a platform to express themselves freely. It is very safe to ask questions. There is no bad question. There is no need to feign any surprises. If you have a question, feel free to just ask. We also have Slido links, of which I will be talking more about just in a few slides. Also, these links will be available on our meetup page. So feel free to use that. Today's agenda. So what do we have today? So our first speaker is Alisa. She is working for free now as a machine learning engineer, and she will be talking about self-quantify in Python. Our second speaker is Coen de Groot. He will be speaking on Python, is his favorite Swiss Army knife. So really interesting topic, both of it. Looking forward to the sessions. For these questions, like I was talking about, we have Slidos for each of the questions. The link is mentioned on your screen. You can also access these links on our meetup page, or if you want, you can just post your questions in the chat section of the streaming, and we will ask the questions to the speakers at the end of their talks. So we're looking for speakers. If you're interested to present any project, then please feel free to contact us. And by speakers, we do not mean professional speakers, but we are looking for people who just have something to share. And even if it is your first time, and if you want a platform to just put your ideas across, then please use this platform and submit your ideas. There are different types of talks. We all have 30-minute talks, we have 5 to 10-minute lightning talks, and we have a coding slam as well, which is around 5 minutes. This coding slam is about Python standard library and small Python snippets that you would like to share. If you're interested, then we are super happy to also provide mentorship and feedback. So just reach out to us and we will be happy to help you in any way possible. And we're also looking for organizers. If you're interested, then please feel free to reach out to us. And if you're interested, this is the QR code, and the link is also mentioned on the screen. So if you're interested to submit a talk proposal or just to initiate a conversation, then please feel free to leave a message. And also, we are on Twitter by the handle PyBerlin Python. So feel free to tag us and talk about us, especially with this event, what you like about it. Or if you have any suggestions on how we can improve, then please feel free to tag us and tell us how you liked our event. And also, we are on Slack by the link mentioned on your screen, pyberlinslack.herokuapp.com. And also all the beautiful logos and this presentation and all the artistic work that you see on the slides and even in the talks, it is created by some wonderful people whose names and handles are mentioned on the screen. So we're really, really thankful for creating the logos and other stories as well. So thank you so much to Alina, Konstantin, and Christian, and everyone else who was part of creating this platform. And with that, we welcome our first speaker, Alisa, and she will be talking about self-quantify in Python. So over to you, Alisa.
So, hello everybody. I'm gonna share my screen in a second. So, who am I? I'm Alisa. I work, as Ray already mentioned, as a machine learning engineer at Free now, and I use Python and Rust in my daily work and my free time projects, and I'm very interested in psychology and empathy. And today I will be presenting a topic that is touching all of those parts. So why are we even talking about self-quantify? Well, I think that people are the biggest assets in any sphere of your life that you can have. Social connections are important, your family is important. In business, people and knowledge are the core of the business, no matter what it is, even if the product is supposed to be the business core. So happier people is a game changer. So my motivation on exploring this topic comes from two main parts, which are my personal experience and some general trends in society. So personal would be, I personally am prone to burnouts. I overcommit a lot to my work, to my projects, to my family, and I always forget about myself, to have some time for me to just wind down. I have a mindset of giving a sacrifice to everything I have. So no matter how bad I feel, I will help out my friends. I will make a project success. So you can see how it all goes into burnout. General trends are, there are no standards in psychology about burnout. What is a burnout? Like there is a definition in Wikipedia, but to be honest, then every second or even the first person can be burned out. And how severe is a big question. There's also no standards in setting a diagnosis for these things or other mental illnesses. There is no standard in tooling. So all in all, it's a rather bad one. No unified approach to what factors matter. For instance, depending on your character, you might be prone to burnout, but you just don't get them because you know that you like your weekends and you don't touch anything electrical. You just do the internet detox or something like this, and this is what is working for you. Some people do sports, some people try to be mindful, meditate, but again, it's not working for everybody the same way, and there is no standard. There is no proper education of people on how to feel better, how to take care of yourself mentally, how to take care of yourself physically. Yes, we have a lot of trendy articles on Medium about diets, about doing some sports, but in reality, we need way more information, how exactly it influences your body, what hormones are being produced, what can happen if you have an overflow of those hormones, for instance. So there are some resources to start with. For instance, Reddit's quantified self thread, which is very good to start with. There are some ideas on applications, on some approaches, on scales. For instance, if you are tracking your mood, if it's good to set a scala from 0 to 10, or maybe from -5 to 5, what is the difference? So some stuff like that. There is a really good blog about mood tracking. What exactly is mood? From my perspective, it's a proxy feature that doesn't give you much information about you, but it's a compound thing that says, yeah, you felt bad because you were sick, or there is some problem with your project on your work, or stuff like that. So Wikipedia will just give you the formal definition and some other links. Community is a forum where you can ask questions about which approach to take, how at all it can be started, and some mood trackers, for instance, bullet journals or other approaches. So whenever we think about self-quantifying, there are multiple difficulties that you are facing. For instance, the data is fuzzy. By fuzziness, I mean, if you track your mood, it depends greatly when you're doing it. Are you tracking your mood right after some big event, for instance, your birthday, or a failure of a project, or a success of a project? So your mood is very situational and momentary. Additionally, the same data for one person will not mean the same for the other person. For instance, if we take the scala of the mood from 0 to 5, I can say, I'm at 3 today. But for some person, 3 can be, oh, that's a great result. For instance, I suffer from depression, so all my moods are 1. That's different. Also, direct feedback. It's a really interesting thing that whenever you see your stats real time, you will try to adjust your behavior to improve them, meaning you're invalidating your previous data. So this direct feedback loop is kind of dangerous for you as well, because you sometimes can misinterpret what you see, especially if you're not an expert in this topic. Temporal nature of the data points, I've already mentioned. Depending on the time of the day, of the year, or even of the hour, or depending on the previous events, your evaluation can change completely. Background. This is something cultural. For instance, for me, I come from Russia. A lot of rudeness, let's say, in communication between people can be normal, or at least from other people, it can be perceived as very rude, cold, but in my culture, it's normal. So if I am to write down some events and my feelings about it, I will be very, I will tend not to use too many words and describe my emotions in detail, where, for instance, a stereotype, Italian person will write way more words. Health conditions. Obviously, mental health will affect a lot what you write and how you write down. Additionally, some even mood swings can dictate the content of what you're writing down, skewing immensely your data. And it is incredibly hard to, even if you have the data, like imagine you have petabytes of it on you, but the problem is there are so many dimensions. For instance, anomalies in financial behavior, anomalies in blood pressure, or even mood swings, or how many chocolate I ate today. All those features are important potentially, and incredibly hard to count them all in. So as far as I know, I'm not an expert, but as far as my research goes, there are no standard models, approaches, guidelines, or measurements, Scala, to create a model that will tell you that, oh, you're overspending this week. Probably you have a trend downwards in your mood department, so you should get a vacation. It's incredibly hard to not only quantify yourself, but also understand what exactly are you seeing, and even harder to create an appropriate model or cascade of models that can somehow help you out, give you rational advice on how to and what to do next. So there are thousands and thousands of different tracking apps on App Store and Google Store, but there is no rockstar app. There is no centralized application that collects as much data as possible and tries to do something useful with it. So saying all that, how can we change the game? So we can go through all the existing apps and APIs. Whenever you install an application, you probably as a Pythonista would like to get the data from it to analyze it, to run some Jupyter notebooks with the models, and to see what you can do with it. Not only rely on what dashboards this app has. Or you can write your own application. Then you have way more experience, or you will with collecting data, or you will have way more control over it. So let's think about external apps and APIs. The positive things about it, it's you don't have to write it, right? It's already there, and UI is normally pretty. It's specialized. So the team that developed it probably have put a lot of thought into it. Nice UI. And additionally, if you use Python, you will go into many troubles or difficulties to create a pretty useful mobile app, whereas it's just handed to you. And you can save time. So the negative things about it, it is specialized. So you can't use, for instance, sleeping tracker or mood tracker for financial behavior tracking or other things. Unfortunately, all the applications that I use, and normally I do an extensive research on what to use and why I'm doing it, they either don't have at all developer APIs, or it's very limited or not free, which is kind of disappointing. Also, you will be working with predefined data models. For instance, I know exactly that changes, rapid changes in my financial behavior mean coming mood swing. But in normal budget tracking, you will never see that. So there is no possibility to extend these data models that they're already using with some maybe unconventional but very important feature. It is not always free, which is good. Things should not always be free, but still, again, a little bit disappointing. And also there is a question of data usage. Are they saving it? Are they selling it? Because a lot of factors on you can be used for marketers. It can be used to a very extreme degree. So what about writing our own app? The positive things are customized data models. You know yourself the best. So you will put probably the most important features and some noise. Let's call other features noise, because we don't know yet if they're important or not. It's rather secure, because in the end, you can end up with an application that will never touch internet. The best security. It is a versatile usage, meaning you can combine sleep tracker, mood tracker, financial tracker, some psychological tests, what's not, to your liking. You will skill up your Python, at least Python. Maybe also you will improve your web security topics or data modeling or machine learning, data science, what's not. Whatever you like, whatever you think will bring you the most. The negative part of it is you don't have an expertise in evaluating the data, meaning you either are prone to make some errors or getting unsatisfactory results, or even going into completely wrong way and misinterpreting the data and the results and making, well, you endanger yourself by doing this. It is time consuming. And as we know, a lot of side projects don't get finished. Deployment. It can be free, it can be not free, but you have to maintain it and you have to decide how to do it. And you have to have the knowledge, or at least some minimal understanding on how to do it. Side tracking. Again, own projects are mostly done in our free time, and we want to spend our free time not only by coding, because most of us probably also do something with the computer on our job, but spend time with our families or write a game with our friends, our families, our children. The project probably will stuck at some point. I personally opted out for writing my own app. I have several forms that I use. For instance, one of them is supplements and medicamentation form, where I write down which medicamentation I used, how much of it, at what time, did I feel anything, how did it affect my main parameters like mood, stress, focus, stuff like that. I also have a work-life balance form, which is a pretty interesting thing. I will show you that in a second. But basically what it does is I write down the activity that I'm doing. For instance, I give a talk, or I work, or I clean up my house, or I play some video games, and I write down which type of activity it is, if it's fun, mastery, chores, or social. And I also note down how stressed I am or how happy I am. Not even or, and how happy I am. By collecting all those en masse, I get an idea if I'm pushing myself to do things that I'm not fond of, but I have to do for my career, for instance, and I know that it will drain my energy at the end. So I try to find a certain balance. So budget reporter tracker, you can use almost any program because most of them have basic functionality implemented very well. But for me, it was important to see very specialized trends. So I have Plotly implemented in Python that directly shows me when, how, what, at what time, and what comment I had when I did some spending. And under research, meaning I'm researching right now the psychology and a scientific part of the forms to use is metaphoric cards. This is very popular in Russia again. This is something abstract. You will see a picture and you have to describe how you feel about it. It's not very popular in Europe because it's incredibly hard to quantify. Okay, so I feel blue. What does it mean? So I would say that this approach has a very big future in NLP department, maybe, because then you can identify that if you feel certain things and think about certain things, then I don't know, maybe you have to solve a problem in this department, or you have to do something about a different topic that also pops up in a different description. Background tracking. All of the forms that I've implemented are you have to actively fill them in, which again creates certain bias. Time bias, mood bias, what's not bias. I want something that will tell me that I spend that much time in the internet, that much time on the gaming, maybe like Steam platform, or some social platforms like Telegram, Skype, I don't know. There are some programs like that, but I'm researching how to integrate them properly into my project. Extended mood tracker. I've used to use Dailyo a lot, but the problem with that is it's a proxy. It doesn't tell you anything at the end of the day. So I need some additional information and fields that tell me why I'm feeling that way and when exactly was the record made. Also, to-do list. I was using some gamification applications like Habitica, but it didn't work out for me because my to-dos were, I have to power through it. And at the end, I was very exhausted and stopped doing to-do lists altogether. So golden circle is a principle, maybe a topic for another discussion, but basically you have to write your things that you have to do. You have to prioritize them according to your internal motivation. I want to change the world. Okay, how do I want to change the world? Well, I want to write an application that people can use. So my first to do would be create an application or start with the project. But at the same time, I want to eat something, so I have to do my job. Would be the second item on my list. So the tech stack that I'm using, Python obviously, is Flask. Postgres as a database to save the results from the forms. Most of the data that you can save is relational. Ansible is used as an automation tool for deployment. I use Docker to easily replicate, transfer, and test my code. And additionally, I have a Hetzner server, which is almost free. I pay about €3 per month for about 2 GB space, which is, again, I think pretty cheap and useful. So let's check out the application. I will show you the code just slightly because it's a really standard application. I have a Flask with blueprints, application, Docker Compose, Docker file. As you can see, the blueprints have the templates inside. So I am using server rendering with Ginger. that is built in Flask. And I have only admin, quantify, and user. Admin panel is the functionality to get the data in, so download it basically, or delete it if I want to release the application for multiple people to use. Templates obviously consist some HTML forms that are very similar, and user implements a very simple logging flow. So let's run it. This is the open source version of it. Ooh. Am I not running it? Live demo, what can go wrong, right? Okay. So this is the work-life balance I was talking about. You can write down, for instance, giving a talk, which is mastery. I still want to improve my public speaking skill. I am extremely stressed, but I'm also quite extremely happy. And it went down to our Postgres. In the admin, you can give the timestamp of what you want to download. For instance, first, and you can see that we have it. So imagine you have a table over several months. Then you can pretty much run different type of algorithms or statistical analysis on identifying which type of activity is prevalent in your life or in this time frame that you were tracking. How did you feel overall? If it's correlated heavily with your happiness or stress, if you should reduce it, or if you should otherwise try to increase the amount of mastery, for instance, in your life or social activities and stuff like that. So this, again, is open source version. My personal program is for one user only, and I would not show it today because it contains some sensitive information that I was way too lazy to fake for the presentation. But my future goal is create a backend without a UI. At least the backend itself will be not rendering anything with Fast API for most of the forms that I use. I would like to use a better stack, not better, but more modern stack, like Fast API with asynchronous connection to Postgres, for instance, maybe even Elasticsearch, because again, NLP, as I mentioned before, has a great future there and a great use that I can see. I would love to collaborate with more people from psychology and social studies to understand how exactly this the results and data can be united, can be analyzed, and what we can do all together. Maybe some results of one person still can be useful for the other person if they have X% in common. So things like that. I also would love to see a crowdsourced or sponsored deployed version of it. So a free for all application where you can just track your data, download it back, create some analysis, and maybe share it with others. So I think that's it for today. In my personal opinion, this topic is more interesting to discuss other than me present it all the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a very interesting session. And especially in these Corona times, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have this self-monitoring check and also an overworking check if we're doing a good job or if we are doing overworking ourselves or not. So thank you for your session. And here's a huge round of applause for you.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect. So now we have questions. And Ellen, do we have questions from Slido?
Yeah, so thanks, Alisa. First of all, I thought this was super interesting. We don't have questions yet. So I'm wondering if anybody still wants to submit any quickly. The links you should have received by email today, so
But I had a question, Alisa. So have you used this in your personal space, or have you used this, and what has been your results? And have you been
Mhm.
able to manage your time better by this app? Just a
Yeah.
psychology question, not just a Python
Mhm.
or data science question.
Yeah. For instance, I've analyzed my mood swings or the cyclic nature of my mood trend. It's actually normal to have cycles in your life,
Mhm.
but I figured out that I'm weekly based, cycling through my good and bad mood. For instance, one week I'm good, one week I'm bad. So I decided to try and do a lot of projects, some public speaking, some really energy consuming stuff in good weeks. And in the bad weeks, I just allow myself to relax, chill on the couch, watch Netflix, whatsoever. And I figured out that later, after about a month of this behavior, my general mood baseline improved. It might be a bias again, but I think this is something that everybody can use, and it worked for me, at least I hope.
Interesting, very interesting. Because we all have this APIs, or we have this mobile apps. For instance, I have a water drink reminder app
Mhm.
that I want to drink more water, but it never works. But maybe if I develop something from scratch on my own, I will be more passionate to use it and see if it shows good results or not, right?
One thing that I noticed definitely is the more you invested into the topic, not, for instance, to follow the
Mhm.
water drinking advice, but okay, I want to understand why is it important, and
Yeah.
you start researching, and you're like, holy shit, if I don't drink, I die,
Yeah.
because I don't know, your cells will have not enough water, increasing amount of salt in it, and you just go into biochemistry with all the mind exploding things, and you're
Mhm.
like, no, I would rather drink. And at some point, you don't even need this app to remind you. So a fear is a great helper there, I would say,
Mhm.
but also understanding in detail or greater detail why you do things. Also during development of the app, you will understand why, for instance, this specific tracker or reminder didn't work for you.
Mhm.
So customizing things for your need is a big part of it as well.
Sounds interesting. So that's all from me. Ellen, do we have questions from you?
We now have a question, which is somebody is asking whether you could post the link probably on the Meetup page to your open source version of the app. Is
Yeah,
that something you can share? Cool.
yes, I can actually share it right away, but I will post it later as well. So
Cool.
it's in conferences and this one. It also has for beginners all the steps how to build this app, why it's built this way, and why certain functions were implemented, and how to use Docker. So all together. Ah, I'm not sharing the screen. How could I? Sorry. Whoops. This. Now I'm sharing the screen. So it's on GitHub Alisa conferences. Actually, you can check out other projects there. Might be written in different language, but all are explained really good. The application is this, what I've showed you. And again, for beginners, you will find all the steps that you need and slides to get started with Docker, get started with Flask, and other useful resources.
Yep, and we will post this link on our meetup page as well. So just in case our audience you want to see it, then please feel free to access that link from that page. In the next 5 minutes, I think we'll post it.
Send it to you.
Thanks. So I think that was it, right, Ellen?
The question over. I have a question, but we might be out of time, so I don't know.
Let's try it.
Okay, so I was wondering what you think about including, so our phones collect all these, especially if you use any kind of health tracking app, they collect all this data about us. Have you considered looking into combining that such data? Or?
Yeah, and this is part of the background tracking. This would be really amazing to combine consciously giving or collected data with unconsciously collected data. By unconsciously, I mean what you've said, something that is running in background, for instance, the step counter, or how much time did we even touch our phones during the day, or stuff like that. I am not sure, because I'm not an expert in how to exactly implement that. So I'm not sure how to do this. And I will be crazily thankful and grateful for the person who might have an idea how to do this to come up and step up and just implement it. I would love to use it. Like, you are being tracked anyhow, right? So why don't you be the first person that gets to see the data?
So I know that at least for iOS, which I use, there is an app which allows you to export all the health kit data in CSV format. You just email them to yourself from your phone. And then you can use the CSV and just combine it with any other data that you generate. So I've used that to analyze my own step behavior, for example, and combine it with some data.
That would be awesome. Then I can, or I should check out if you have something for Android, or I mean, Android definitely has something like it, if it's easy to use, let's say.
It's definitely worth looking into.
I agree 100%. Good tip. All right.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Alisa. That was a very interesting session. And now we will have a 10-minute break. And let's meet again at 10 minutes to 8, that is at 7:50. And we will have the next session by Coen de Groot. And yeah, see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a coffee or a drink and you are excited for our next speaker, who is Coen de Groot, and he will be talking about Python and a Swiss knife. So let's hear what he has to talk about. And over to you, Coen.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so yes, welcome to this talk on my favorite Swiss Army knife. I'm going to go and share my screen. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen now, and if you can't see, then maybe one of the organizers can tell me, but I assume you can see it, right? Okay, good, thank you. All right, okay, so welcome, then something about me, then what is the problem, and then I'll tell you what I did. Okay, so very briefly, I'm a freelance Python developer and trainer. My name is Coen de Groot. I've got 20 or 30 years worth of programming, 8 years of Python. I've just finished creating my 4th training video of about an hour and a half each, and that's what this talk is going to be all about. I also create some online courses, and I deliver training. I do Python programming, natural language programming, extract transfer, data analysis, helping code to go faster, whatever. Okay, fine. That's enough about me. So here's what happened. So when I started to make training videos for a publisher, I wanted to get like really good quality. And being Python videos, I wanted to be able to demonstrate things, not just have slides and me talking. But actually, it turns out it's really difficult to type and talk, and to keep it really focused. So I found that I had to do quite a bit of re-recording, and then what you get is I would say something and I would be speaking for a couple of minutes. I would realize I'd said something slightly wrong. I'd pause, I'd start again, or I might start a new little bit. And then later, to get all of that lined up, to edit it all out is really tedious. And then especially if you've just started a demonstration, you've typed in 2 or 3 lines of Python code, and you realize that you want to start again, then you really should start at the beginning, because otherwise the code you've already typed up doesn't fit in with where you are talking wise. So it's a real hassle. Then the editing itself, taking out the ums and ahs, and then as soon as I did that, then the video come out of sync with the voice. Yes, so that was all a bit quite tedious. So let me just show you what I'm about to show you. In fact, what you can already see on the screen, I will play this little bit of video in a minute. So this is the first course I did on a Pygame, a popular Python games library. I will hold my microphone up by the speaker, so hopefully you can hear it. And you may notice that I'm actually repeating myself. So what you will hear is something that I did before I used the system, before I got bored with all this editing. And so this is the old way of doing it kind of by hand and recording bits and then using some video editing software, etc., to tie it all together. Okay, so let's see if you can hear this. Of course you can't, because I should switch over to a microphone. Modern technology is far too complicated. Right, there we go. Let's go back a little bit. Of the rotated image, and set its center of the rotated image. Take the rect, left top width and height of the image, of the rotated image, and set its... Okay, so I don't know if you noticed that, but I repeated myself, and this is the video that I actually submitted, so I didn't even kind of catch it. So I missed this one. Okay, so what did I do? I thought I'd do something in Python. I had to have some sort of name for my folder, so I came up with Python video production, PyViper, which seems kind of what's the word? Seems appropriate. And what it does, I'll show you in a minute. So I give it a text file that I write, and that does the whole demo. Well, apart from me talking, but everything else is in this text file, step by step. And then I've got the code itself, and that gives me a recording studio, which I'll show you, and it will produce the video. So to create the whole video for me, it'll tie all the bits together, and I'll show you through all the steps one at a time. Okay, so well, first of all, why did I use text? because I could have used a database, gives you a nice kind of structure and all of that. But actually, the thing with doing that, I would then have to create some sort of editing facility for it. And I wanted to be able to move blocks around, for instance. So I find it much easier to edit a text file because there's so many tools out there that let you do that. And it's really easy with the text file to just see the whole flow. I can just kind of scan through it and see it in one go. The only thing that I did that makes it a little bit of a database is that the system itself, when I mark something as here is some voice recording, here's something that I have to say, have to speak and record, that gets an ID. So when I then move lines about, the text in the document and the recording that I've done move with it. So I can take whole blocks of my text and move it about. So let me show you a sample of a text file, which is coming up on the wrong tab. I just need to move the tab over. Okay, go over here. There we go. Okay. So here's an example file, and each part of the video, so I'll have maybe 20 parts of the video, like a little chapter or mini chapter, we'll have one of these files. And in there will be some slides. Each slide will have some steps. So the steps will consist of some sort of text, a bit of slide text, voiceover text, which is the VO, with the ID. Now all these numbers, all the IDs and the steps, etc., is all generated. So I will only type in the absolute minimum, and then the system generates the ID and also inserts a step. So I put in a blank line, and that is assigned to, well, insert a step here. And basically, I create a text file, and when I load it into the system, it then adds these extra bits to it and saves it back on top of my text file. So when I then move things around, it kind of keeps that same structure. Okay, so there's basically, I create a text file that contains the text, as in the text I'm speaking, the slides, and the demonstrations. Let's show you all the different bits, which is here. Okay, yes. So I've created my text file, and then the next thing, I then need to record my voice, because it's a video, so I want the pictures, but also my voice. So what the system does, which is very important, is I can record myself. I will listen to myself straight away, and I will re-record what I've said if necessary. This is a Flask app, another Flask, because it's so useful for these small things. So let me do you a tiny demo and just show you what the screen looks like. Let's select a different one. Wait a minute, there we go, need that one. Okay, so here's the screen. Normally the layout is a little bit nice. It's on my big screen that I'm not looking at the moment. On my big screen, the buttons are next to each other. So I can just say start record. So this is the sentence that I'm recording. And here on the right, there's the other sentences that I've already recorded all of them. But if I hadn't, there'll be a little marker to say you still have to record this. So I pick a sentence, I say start recording, it records, I click stop recording, and then it says, okay, so in red means it's not, I haven't decided yet, so I will listen to it. It will come back on my headphones, and then I will say, yes, this is approved, this is the good one, or no, this one is garbage. So it makes a very quick cycle between recording one sentence, listening to the sentence, did I get it right? And if I didn't, then I'll record it straight away. If I did, I'll mark it as correct. So that is the recording. It was so much quicker than recording minutes at a time and then trying to come back to it and fix it afterwards. Yeah, here it goes straight away. And then on the left, it actually tells me if there's anything left to record. So bottom left, there's the list of the steps for this particular part. And top left is all the bigger are the individual parts, like the segments that make all the topics that make up this thing. Okay, so that is the recording. And so most of what I do what I want to do for the rest of this is, I like showing off, so there's a nice opportunity to show off. But actually, what I really want to do is to show you how fantastic Python is and how many things you can tie together and how much is already done for you. So I think I've got 5, 6, 7 different libraries and other things that I've tied together that I want to share with you. So for the audio recording, I'm using a library called Python Sound Device. Now, little disclaimer, I don't know if any of the things that I'm using is necessarily the best one. It's just that any of those was good enough for my own personal use. So am I recommending it? Maybe. It's definitely worth checking out. Okay, so here it's a recording device, and I'll show you the code. Oh, by the way, what I'm doing here, all of this is on a GitHub repository, and in the slide is just a link to the repo that takes me to the right line, so I can nicely jump between them. Okay, so here's a recorder. I've already loaded, I've already imported the library. But basically, it just takes a few lines to say, well, okay, here is a sound file. That's my target file. Input stream, yeah, we got an input stream. Basically, I just took this example from a website somewhere. I just copied it in, and then let's do it. The method starts running, and it keeps recording until self.recording, until this flag is set to false. So the Flask app gets called, and it hits another endpoint that just calls stop recording. So that switches off the recording again. So that's my first little snippet, and it's just going to be very quick snippets. A couple of lines, record a file. Record yourself to a file. One more thing to note is that I'm using a lot of small intermediate files. So there's a lot of small steps. And each step is being kept just so I can easily kind of come back to them later and see how we're doing, etc. Okay, so that is recording my voice. What else are we doing? Well, I want to have some slides. So here at the bottom of this slide, there's what you would be seeing on the slide. So I've created my own little language. It's just a few codes that are in this text file where it all starts with a T underscore or just a T or for text. So that is the text that goes on the slide that the viewer will see on the video. So there's a bit of code that you can do to turn HTML into an image, because in the end it has to be an image, because I need to be able to turn it into a video. So I've defined some codes, then I do a little bit of, I just turn those codes into HTML. I mean, that's just saying, well, okay, a little bit of parsing and creating something. So that I do manually. I manually take those codes that are in from the text file, and I then run them through something called imgkit that converts them into an image. And the image it creates is the image you see at the bottom. So to generate this, there would be something that says T_H1, header 1, space, what is a log? Then T_li to say, T_ul, unordered list. So these are all kind of bastardized HTML codes. So T_ start an unordered list, and then each line starts with T_li, and then does the text. I'm not too worried about closing tags because I just put on the same line. So 3 lines are that, and that generates the image. So this is how that works, and this is really straightforward. So there is this library called imgkit, and you give it some HTML. You give it the name of a file, a name and a path of a file. And you say, well, create an image from HTML, from a string, not from a file, it reads from a string. And you can say how wide is it going to be, how high is it going to be, so that it trims it, it kind of sets the browser that it shows this bit of HTML in to a certain size. And that's all it took me to go from a few commands to a nicely, consistently formatted slide. Okay, What else? Now, whilst I'm talking about the code, I've particularly, well, basically I'm going through, I'm talking through the code. So I can't really point at lines, but I can show the source code, and I can highlight lines. So I've got a little command, and all the commands in the code start with C underscore, so to be C underscore show code, and then the name of the source code to show. Now all the source code that I'm using for showing the source code, as in just showing it, and running, doing demonstrations, all lives in one folder. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a py file. I'm using Pigments, which is another library, which converts it into HTML, and I'm using ImageKit to turn it into an image. And what it does, it gives me an image that I can then make part of the video. So I can talk about the code, and I've also got a command where I can say highlight this line. And in Pigments, you can say when you generate this HTML, add an extra tag to say this line should be highlighted. So I could be saying, well, okay, in this semaphores py, we first set the number of eaters, and then at the same time that you hear that, you will see the source code with the line highlighted. Then I might be saying, oh well, and then the forks. Then I create a few semaphores, the forks and the spoons. At which point I can say, well, okay, line 7 and 8 should be highlighted. So my voice and the highlighting will automatically be in sync. Okay, so let me show you that in code. And what have we got here? So we've got a function here that does that. First of all, it reads the source code. We read the source code just from a file. And then I do a bit of lines to work out what the target should be, what the target code should be. But this is all, wait, we need to go up a little bit. This is all it takes to take some HTML and turn it in, to take some Python code and to apply syntax highlighting to it so that constants are a different color than Python keywords. So I don't think I specifically mentioned that. So if you look here, you can see that I assume that's a keyword in green. That will be not quite sure, name of a library. I don't know why it's in blue. And there's a few other colors. I don't quite know which one of the colors. I haven't memorized the colors, but you can see there's different colors for different types of words, different types of syntax. Okay, so that's what Pigments does. You need to specify that it's Python. You can use it for different languages as well, by the way. If you want to have some nice looking Java or JavaScript, there's other elections as well. And I say I want it to HTML. So I give this some Python code, just a Python file. And I say, we'll turn it into HTML with highlighting and line numbers and some other bits and pieces. Give the title, so above the actual lines of code, it gives the title and export font, etc. Then I need to say, well, we need to add a style sheet to it. So I asked Pigments, well, just remind me what style sheet I should add to my page. I glued it all together, and so I just kind of do an F string. I put my style sheet first, then the generated HTML. I run it again through ImageKit. So that takes the HTML and then it creates another image. So I'm building up little parts that are going to make up the video. So that creates a picture. Then, so that's me drinking some water, having talked about drinking. Okay, then I want to do some demos. But as I said, typing and talking is kind of tricky, but still I want the voice that I recorded, I want to be in sync with the demos. So in my text file, that this one single text file that defines a whole segment and a whole 5 minutes of video or whatever, I can put some other codes. If I want to do a Python demo, I can use 3 greater than signs, because that is the same as the Python prompt, so that's easy to remember. Or I can do a $sign for a Linux command. I work on Linux, so if I want to run a Python script, I'll say $Python space and then the name of the script. Or Python time space the name of a script if I want to show you how long it's, $time Python name of the script if I want to show you how long it takes to run the script. Sometimes the thing is, when you run a script or when you run a bit of code, I can't see how long it takes to do this. So instead I have to say, well, okay, this might take a couple of seconds to run. Or I might say, well, this particular script, like I just did a video on, that which included deadlocks, synchronization, etc. And that just gets stuck. So I do an example of a bit of code getting stuck. So I can also say, well, look, after 10 seconds or 15 seconds, the program that pulls this all together, press Ctrl-C and do a forced break. So now, whilst this demo is being recorded, I sit back and I watch my screen. So I wasn't brave enough to do this actually during this talk because, well, it'd be difficult to share my screen because normally I use my laptop screen and my monitor, and to demonstrate that on a call would get very complicated. So the principle of this is that I'm using PyAutoGUI, and that effectively takes over control for me. So PyAutoGUI will select the window that either contains the Python prompt or a terminal window. It will set the right size because I'm using 2 different. If I've got the source code next to my demo, then there's less space for the demo. So there's 2 different sizes of demo. It will set the size of the terminal window. Then it will go off to OBS Studio, which is what I use to do for screen recording, and it hits the record button. Then the next thing it does, it goes back to the terminal or to the Python console, and it will start typing in the text as if I am typing. Then when it's done and it's waiting an appropriate amount of time if necessary, it will go back to OBS Studio and it will hit the stop recording button. Now, all of that happens whilst I just watched my screen running the whole demo for me. I could do that myself, but if I make a small change, then I would have to redo the demo, and sometimes there's little bits of demo, and then that's really tedious. So this way, I just write the Python code in the same text file that everything else goes, and I just know what happens for each step and each slide. So here's an example of PyAutoGUI, some of the code. And this was probably the first thing that kind of got me excited, that got me thinking, well, actually, wait a minute, I don't have to do all of this by hand because I can let Python do it. And then I realized I can let Python take over the screen. Okay, so here's a few things that PyAutoGUI does. The first thing I need to do, so typically I will have to click on something, or the script has to click on something. So if it needs to start the recording, I give it a picture. And I say, well, okay, there's this picture that you have to find on the screen. So PyAutoGUI will scan the screen until it finds this exact image. And then it returns a location, just a little box around it. So if you've never seen this, I'm caching this. If you've never seen LRU Cache, I recommend you check it out. It's such a useful library. Finding out, so I've got a 4K screen and a laptop screen next to it as well. To scan all of that takes a bit of time. That took half a second or so. And do that again and again is quite time consuming. So I'm caching the result because that button will never move, it always stays in the same place. And that just takes care of the caching. Okay, so when I say press the start button, it uses this bit of code I showed you just now to find, it gets the button, it says, well, where's the center of the button? And then I say, just click on the button. So I tell PyAutoGUI to move the mouse to that location and to click on it for me. So that takes care of switching between terminals, starting the OBS screen recorder, etc. And then the other thing you can get it to do is to say, well, write out a line for me. Just write some text for me. And you can even do that with a delay. So instead of just throwing it at the screen, there could be a short delay between each character. And I think I might do a quarter of a second. So it looks like I'm typing it rather than it just appearing the text. And I might send a Ctrl-C at the end as well. There's a bit here that sends Ctrl-C when done. Okay, so that was probably one of the most exciting bits. There's one more exciting bit that came up there. So that was the code example. Then I'll show this very briefly. Then I've got the background and the source code that had to be combined in images, for which I use Pillow, the new version of the PIL Python image library. So with PIL, you can just load an image. So you open an image, you say image.open, and image is a PIL, one of the classes in there. And then you either say paste or you say alpha composite to put more images on top of it. So I take the bottom image and I put image, and that's how I combine some images. So that starts to build up the video. But then the real building up happens here. So now I've got all these different elements. My voice, I've got some images that I need to merge with the video. Now you can only, the final step only combines video with video. So first I create an image to a video of the right length, work out the length. If there's a demo, I will extract the last image, because otherwise in the next step, you've got a blank screen and actually you still need to see kind of the ghost, the end of the demo. The demo video is too big, so I need to cut it down. So I've now got all the raw materials. Then it needs to be glued together. So all my voice recordings need to be combined. Then the bits of video need to be glued together, and then the audio and the video need to be combined. For all of that, I'm using FFmpeg, which is an open source video and audio editing command line system that I assume works on everything. I know it works on Linux, but it'll probably work on Windows as well. And I mean, I didn't cheat, but I just worked out the commands, and I just use os.system to run the commands. I print them out as well, so when I'm doing this, there's lots of commands that are scrolling up and down my screen. But yeah, so FFmpeg has got all these commands. Oh, by the way, not sure if I've open sourced it yet, but this is a GitHub repo which might still be private, but which I will make public as soon as I remember. So you can get all these examples yourself. But yes, all these things I just spoke about is done by FFmpeg with just driven from Python. And finally, I check the date and timestamps of the files, so that if something doesn't need refreshing, I don't refresh it. So to make the final result, if I've only changed the demo, but my voice is still the same, then the work of combining all the voices won't be done again. So I've got some code in there as well, which I'll very quickly, I'm running a bit low on time. So I've got some code that says, well, all those little in-between files need to go in a folder. Does the folder exist yet? So just make sure the path exists. If not, then build it. Every time I run this, it backs up the old file, because I'm tend to be paranoid about losing stuff. And then the main routine is where I say, okay, I'm building this target file. I'm creating the end video, but it is based, the previous step, there's these 3 other videos or these 3 things that need to be combined. Check to see if the target is already up to date. If the target is newer than all of the sources. If so, don't bother doing it. So that cuts out a bit of work there. because generating the video takes a while, particularly once you've got an hour-and-a-half video. Right, so let me show you the final result then. So what you saw at the beginning was a video that I did by hand using a video editing software. What I'm showing you now is 3 short examples of videos that came out of the other system that I've just shown you, out of the PyViper. One of them is a video of a speed comparison I did, where I wrote some extra code to do some timing and actually create a whole bunch of, create a little animation of the time going up. That is not in the system. Well, it's kind of in the system. No, it's a little separate system. Anyway, let me just show you all these bits. So one video at a time. I'll move this here. Just need to make sure that I've got a speaker in the right place. Where are we? Sound is set to speaker now. Okay, there we go. Right. The same thing is often written the other way around, by making the statement a positional argument rather than a keyword argument. The math library, part of Python's standard library, has many useful mathematical functions and concepts. So everything that was being typed, I wasn't typing live. That all came from the script. So there was all the 3 brackets, and then the PyAuto GUI was typing it. Okay, next one. Like normal threads, you can wait for the timers to finish. All timers start, and one by one, at the correct time, the messages are shown. Even time to get up. So that's an example of a demo happening at one side, running not from a Python prompt, but now from a Linux prompt, from a Linux terminal. And on the left, there is the source code. Okay, final video. What's in the list? Here you can see that dictionaries and sets are also faster when the element isn't found. For lists and tuples, Python needs to check every single element. Okay, and there is, in fact, what's happening here is actually just playing a video, a pre-recorded video, which is another little system that I did. I was quite pleased with the system, so I thought I'd do a tutorial briefly. Okay, so that is my talk. Thanks for listening. And so 2 of those videos I've recorded, Python Basics and Pygame, are on rdspringer.com. And there's my email address, so you just need to search for Python. There's 2 more videos coming out, one about speeding up Python by itself using more standard methods, and one on asynchronous coding, not async IO, but using processes and threads to speed up your code. Okay, that's what I've been up to. So yes, I'll switch over to questions. Okay.
Hey.
Okay, I'll switch my phone off, my microphone.
Thank you so much, Coen. It was a really interesting session. Even I have struggled with video editing in the past, and to have a Python script that puts everything together is definitely something that I would like to try myself. And a huge round of applause.
Yay, thank you.
And I'm sure all our audience is also really excited to know about this session. And Ellen, do we have questions now?
We actually do not have any questions. I guess you answered everything people could possibly think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not on the stream right now, so I can't read it. Can somebody else read it?
I can read it. It's I'm not sure it's a question, but it's a feedback from someone on the stream, and it says, "Awesome project, and thanks for sharing it. It's definitely inspiring and broadening the knowledge about what Python can do.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, then I think that was it. Thank you so much for your time. It was really interesting. And with that, we are coming to the closing of our session, and over to you. Over to you, Theo.
Okay, so this concludes the August edition of PyBerlin, and thank you all for attending, and special thanks to today's speakers, Alisa Daimler and Coen de Groot. And the next meetup will be in 5 weeks from now on September 21st. And yes, if you have time and you're interested, please reach out to us if you're interested in being a co-organizer of PyBerlin. And please reach out as well if you have an interesting idea for a talk. And if you're on Twitter, please consider following us and feel free to join our community Slack workspace. And thanks again, all of you, for coming, and have a great week.